Thank you, Polly, for inviting me to speak today. I'd like to start with a connecting exercise. So if we could do this together, please close your eyes and place your hands on your heart. Exhale all the air in your body. And inhale through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. And again, inhale through your nose. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Let's take a moment to feel into each person that's on the call today. And as you sit in your house, looking at your screen, see and feel each person in their homes doing the same thing. We are joined energetically together. Thank you. So, what is empathy? Empathy is many things. So let's begin with the formal meaning of the word. Empathy comes from the root word as a translation of Greek, empathia, passion, state of emotion, taken from empathos or en, meaning in feeling, and to suffer or to suffer with. Carla McLaren, a social science researcher and empathy pioneer, describes empathy in her book, The Art of Empathy, as a social and emotional skill that helps you feel and understand the emotions, circumstances, intentions, thoughts, and needs of others such that you can offer sensitive perspective and appropriate communication and support. I like to think of empathy as upgrading listening, a deep awareness on all levels. As a yoga teacher, I feel like I'm qualified to talk to you about empathy today because yoga teaches students to listen in more acutely while learning their yoga poses, connecting with their breath, and observing their inner critic. I hold and create a safe space each time I'm working with my yoga students. Yoga is quintessentially the practice of empathy towards oneself. It teaches my students and me to embrace themselves and to be kind, compassionate, and loving towards all the ways that they are human. Because I have been through my own personal evolution from student to teacher, I can bring my experience onto the mat and share it. I feel a lot of things, perhaps more than most. I would describe myself as an empath and a clairsentient. A clairsentient empath is a type of empath that is more sensitive, in which I can clearly feel the subtext and how to suffer with another. And everything about how I teach yoga through my business, empathic yoga, expresses that sensitivity. My job description of yoga teacher and Reiki energy practitioner would be read as someone who serves others through the lens of empathy and compassion. I can relate to the poses my students learn, those shapes that are challenging to anyone who is a beginner. Because I remember what it felt like to learn the poses for the first time, and those memories inform my ability to gently guide and connect students back to themselves with my clear words, my intuitive hands, and shared breath. My dearest wish for each of my students who embrace their yoga and meditation practices with discipline and regularity is for them to learn how to cultivate their own empathic gaze. From that remarkable insight, for their awareness to continue to expand to all people, animals, ideas, art, science, and so much more. And when a student learns to touch that sweet, vulnerable, precious part of themselves, they cultivate a method of clear connection to others and the world around them. It's a really beautiful thing to witness. Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of nonviolent communication, says empathy calls upon us to empty our mind and listen to others with our whole being. So when we listen to ourselves in that way, we have the capacity to do so with others. Empathy can be as simple as the ability to hold space for another with open arms and open heart. Empathy is listening. Empathy is gentle. I have learned much from holding space in the face of many rapidly changing global awarenesses, namely racial inequality. And for the first time ever, I see that I have been blind. I'd like to share with you a video on how Brene Brown, a research professor, defines empathy by comparing and contrasting it with sympathy. Empathy is the ability to feel with someone, while sympathy is to feel for someone. I think I've felt sympathy for people of color, but it really hasn't been until very recently that I've truly felt empathy instead. Let's see if I can cue up that video for you to watch now. Good. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I know in might have been on no sound, but there will be access to that video in another way if you weren't able to hear the sound. So Brene Brown references Teresa Wiseman, who explains the 4 qualities of empathy: perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth; staying out of judgment and staying objective. This applies to one's self-empathy techniques too. Recognizing emotion in other people and communicating that you recognize those emotions. Empathy is also understanding an event, political and religious ideas, or a culture without casting judgment. It asks me to feel into a powerful, undeniable current event, the protests on a global scale, the racial inequalities, and the prominence of Black Lives Matter. I can safely say that empathy is fast becoming a very valuable tool for an understanding and unity, and I am declaring right now, empathy is the 2020 word of the year. Let me explain my viewpoint on this eye-opening and very bizarre year of 2020 so far. First, because we had to stay home and be less mobile, we had to connect with ourselves. We had more time to spend with our family and friends, went outside to get exercise, and connected with ourselves in a different way than ever before. We had to stay indoors and not leave except for essentials. In our seclusion and what felt like time slowing down, we had time to reflect upon what is important and true. Here, we cultivated a deeper sense of compassion and understanding for ourselves. And then we cultivated compassion for others. We began to connect on a global scale. We started washing our hands more mindfully. We were concerned together when the virus spread beyond China. The global community had the same thoughts and did the same things at the same time. I saw the start of the pandemic as a mutually beneficial first step in cultivating empathy on a global scale. Everyone in the world had a very good idea of what each person was going through. Each of us united in our fears, our hopes, our hygiene practices, and more. It was a unity of thought and understanding on an unprecedented level. And because we were all going through the same thing, we could empathize with each other. I also believe that in this first stage, there was an opportunity for people to truly slow down and spend more time for inner reflection. The pandemic, like yoga, teaches us to suffer with. The sip order was the perfect time for cultivating one's own empathic gaze. The second stage, the expansion of empathy towards others. We're here now, in the profoundly connecting second phase of the pandemic, where almost every day there is civil unrest, protests, legislation change, defunding the police, inequality, and a deeper focus on police brutality. After spending time at the beginning of the pandemic cultivating a more compassionate heart for ourselves, we are now spending time feeling connected to each other about the systemic, institutional, and cultural atrocities of racism in this country. The world heard us. Countries all over the world protested along with us when George Floyd was murdered. We, the global community, could empathize with the plight of others, took responsibility, marched in the streets to show our compassion and to suffer with. I want to broaden my awareness of what a person of color is feeling or needs. Or maybe I will hold space and just listen when I don't know if I can really understand. And I feel motivated to learn more about this subject and educate myself with books, documentaries, and podcasts. But sometimes I don't always know what to do, what to say for fear of saying the wrong thing, or how to take action right now. But I'm trying. And I think that counts for something. I started a Black Lives Matter book club a few weeks ago, and I'm planning a Black Lives Matter charity event with yoga and sound healing in a few weeks. I can no longer just sympathize with people of color. I choose to empathize, and that choice to feel vulnerable has welled a deep pain and sadness within me. I feel the years of injustice, and their pain is my pain. I cry, I hurt, and I get angry. It is inconceivable to me to not take some responsibility for this mess and to be the supporting voice to others who have been oppressed for far too long. And it's simply not just okay to sit and do nothing about it. I want to feel and I want to heal the hurt and I want to make a change. And I will unite and do this together. This, I truly believe, will be a benefit to all of us. Thank you.